Hello, welcome to Podfic Galore. I'm your horrible online reader, Goldskythe. I read out loud fanfictions for you busy bees, free of charge and no strings attached. Today I will be reading you the Silmarillion fic by Aeolian Sands from Archive of Our Own, called The Rescue Party, Chapter 1. I hope you can at least try to enjoy my voice, and I will try my best for you with the equipment available to me. On with the show. The Rescue Party by Aeolian Sands. Chapter 1. Finally. Finally! Wake up, Nolo! We got work to do! Fingolfin thought he recognized that voice. It didn't normally sound so happy to see him. He began, quite inelegantly. Slowly, he opened his eyes, trying to remember where he was and why he felt so tired. The sight that greeted him was nightmare-inducing. A face. A face on fire. There was no flesh, or skin, or bone. Rather, the burning spirit before him had fine features etched in dazzling flames, features that he immediately recognized. Feanara, you are on fire, he answered. It wasn't entirely surprising that his half-brother was on fire. It was surprising that he was seeing him at all. And aren't you dead? Ever the perceptive one. With observations like these, I should pass the title of wisest son of Finwë unto you. Fingolfin groaned. He had forgotten how uniquely exhausting Feanor could be. So you've come to haunt me. Feanara, I'm in the middle of cleaning up your mess, doing your dirty work. For 400 years, we have laid siege to Angamando, and it won't last forever. I don't have time to entertain you. Wearily, Fingolfin closed his eyes. 5 more minutes. Then he would get up and face the day. Write a letter to Maedhros, and see the healers about why he was seeing dead brothers. 1 minute passed, and then he felt a hand flicking his forehead. Or attempting to do so. He felt more like a little bit of fire peppering him. Will you go back to Mandos? He growled, opening his eyes again to see the fea of Feanor sitting on his haunches and preparing to send another flick at his face. This is Mandos, perceptive one. And when I need sleep, not here. So get up. Mandos? Asked Fingolfin when he sat up with a start. He immediately regretted it. Looking down, he saw that his legs were no longer legs. Or at least they weren't legs of flesh. While Feanor was made of fire, he appeared to be made of glittering blue rivulets of water. His legs sparkled like the eyes of Helcaraxe, and he stared at them in wonder. Mandos? He repeated weakly. Yes? Don't you remember being an idiot? And then he did. It came back to him all at once. The rage he felt at hearing of the countless dead. Agnor and Angrod had fallen, and Dorthonion with them. For all his strength, Maglor and his horsemen could not defend the gap against Dragonfire, and all the lands between the arms of Gelion had burned. Caranthir's mighty Mount Rerir was lost as well, and Finrod would have been slain had it not been for the heroics of a small company of men. And Fingolfin had known then. He saw the future written out for them in the black smoke that belched from Thangorodrim. They would fall. Maybe not today, or this century. But the Noldor were doomed in every sense of the word. And in his rage and despair, he had challenged the enemy himself to single combat. Yes. I fought Moringatta in single combat. I gave him 7 wounds, Fingolfin replied as he stood on shaky feet. He must must have given me a few more. There's a wonderful tapestry around here somewhere of him stepping on your neck. Should we find it? Fingolfin cringed. At least I fought the enemy. You died almost immediately. Killed by one of the Valaraukar we fight on a near daily basis. Do shut up, half-brother. I have a point, half-brother. So you do. Which is why... Fëanor paused dramatically. Fingolfin only raised an eyebrow, suddenly dreading what was to follow. We are breaking out of here. Fingolfin looked at Fëanor's ecstatic grin, at the fire literally burning in his eyes. And he knew at once it was a terrible idea. Fëanor, no. But his brother threw a fiery arm around his own icy shoulders. Nala, you challenged Moringota to single combat. Did you not say we were full brothers at heart? I did not believe it until I saw you riding forth like a tempest. But now, surely we are forged of the same metal after all, and we do not belong in a place like this. Fingolfin crossed his arms. I can't believe you. Are you seriously attempting to compliment me? By saying that I am like you. This isn't how flattery works. Fëanor huffed. Fine. Then, as your elder brother, I order you to help me. And as your High King, I say no. I was High King first, and then your son, having 10 times your grace, and now the acidity, don't you? Fine, Fingolfin continued, putting his hands up. It doesn't matter, because Mandos is in Aman, and Ara is king of the Noldor in Aman. And I'm still older than you, and you don't want to be in Mandos while our sons and people fall. This is our chance to make right our mistakes. My only mistake was following you. So you will leave Vindagano to rule Hithlum alone? What will the enemy do when he catches your son in battle? You know Vindagano will not be content to stay behind his walls forever. He will do something reckless, and then Moringota will have a new plaything. How could you? Fingolfin yelled, rage kindling in his heart as he lunged for Fëanor. Unfortunately, he passed straight through his brother's incorporeal body. You can hit me once we have bodies. I promise, Fëanor explained then. Just escape with me. I can't do it alone. Why not? Why does the mighty Fëanor have need of his half-brother now, when he clearly didn't at Losgard? Losgard was a mistake. I thought you would go back to Tirion and rule like you always wanted. I did not know you would cross the ice. I did not know Moringota would have an army. What did you think he would have? Well, he was in Valinor. How could he have built an army? I thought he would be alone, and my host would be enough to take him and get the Silmarils back, obviously. Obviously, Fingolfin replied, amused at how ruffled his brother's feathers were getting despite his still simmering anger over the Helcaraxe. All right, I will help you. Great! Fëanor exclaimed. Come here, I got to show you something. And Fingolfin felt like an elfling about to do something terribly naughty as his brother dragged him through the endless hallways. How do you know where we're going? He whispered, as he noticed that the walls were getting narrower and the darkness greater. Boredom, Fëanor hissed, but I found something here. And then they turned another corner and into a dark dead end. There seemed to be a lingering evil dwelling here. Fingolfin shivered despite his lack of corporal body. Fëanor knelt and pried one of the grey stones near the wall off with his ghostly fingertips. A stone tablet fell out, no larger than a typical piece of parchment on which a receipt might be written. Nalafinma looked over his brother's shoulder. His eyes widened when he saw the ancient carvings. What language is that? He asked. I've been studying this singular tablet for 2 centuries. ever since I found it in this dark corner of our prison. And I believe, no, I know, it is Valarin. I wasn't aware Valarin had a script. And neither was I, but you will see some patterns here, here, and here. These most common signs you can take to be vowels. And then focus on this word and this word alone. Test out assigning different vowels to the signs I pointed out. You may recognize something. Fingolfin stared in silence for a few moments, Fenrir looking at him expectantly. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing anything. Fenrir huffed. Raksavakos, he said, as if it should mean something. Fingolfin frowned. He really did not like the idea of Fëanor learning this ear-grating tongue. It means brother, Fëanor continued when he did not answer. So, have you translated the rest? Not entirely. It doesn't help that I don't know much Valarin to begin with, but I have taken guesses and then spent some time pestering a few of the Meyers servants here. And I've been able to deduce most of the message. It claims that when the spirits of two brothers are of singular purpose, then the stone will crack. Is that all? No. I believe what follows is written by our enemy himself. In fact, I believe Moringotta likely wrote the whole message. However, the other part is just a lamentation on how this method is a dead end, for Manwë would never be of singular purpose. Wait, Fingolfin replied, common sense getting him. You want us to try and follow some instructions set by the enemy? Moringotta may be the most despicable thief and evil incarnate, but he did not want to stay in Mandos any more than we do now. Fingolfin sighed, already exasperated. All right. You lead, and I shall follow. Against my better judgment. Again? Fëanor gave him a grim smile. Just think of your sons, and Ara's children, and your loyal servants and followers. They need you. They need us, Fëanor declared. Fingolfin was a lot less sure about the us part, but for some reason he couldn't shake the image that had come to live in his mind. An image of Maedhros kneeling in the mud, clutching golden ribbons in despair. It may have been a light enchantment of Fëanor's, but it was doing its work. Regret and guilt were already building in his heart. Yes, for our children, he replied. Fëanor placed his hand on the wall, and Fingolfin laid his own on top of it. There was a light tapping on his mind, and Fingolfin dropped his mental shield slightly. He saw that Fëanor was sharing with him images. He saw Nerdanel at work, on a statue 4 times her size. Young Celecorm chasing Juan through the streets of Tirion. And he saw Curufin proudly presenting a circlet of silver to his father. Fingolfin added his own memories then. He thought of Turgon sketching architectural designs, and of Arendhel racing horses on the beach. There was Fingon practicing the harp, with Argan on the flute. Fëanor's images were coming faster then. Fingolfin saw Finwë's body, and felt his brother's grief. His own welled up from within his spirit, as he remembered holding his youngest as he died in his arms. Grief was followed by regret and rage, as Fingolfin saw then a picture of young Amros crying inconsolably as fire burned, his twin nowhere to be found. Fingolfin remembered Turgon then, his brave son, who no one had heard of from centuries. And he felt his heart clench in pain as he considered his fate. Fingolfin felt Fëanor's hand tremble beneath his own. and it was almost as if power were going out of them both, combining in rivers of pain and sorrow. Suddenly, there was a great crack, like an earthquake. The stone beneath them split, and suddenly white light embodied them both. Fingolfin would have screamed if he remembered how. As it were, the bright light assaulted every sense and burned his spirit. The Latin chanting met his ears, and he held his head in pain as he felt himself flip through space. Finarfin, High King of the Noldor in Valinor, was on his Menelia early morning walk on the beach adjacent to Tirion, along the Bay of Eldamar. Menelia was the day of the week where life was supposed to slow down a bit. And although it never did, Finarfin could still appreciate the sentiment and sneak away for an hour to enjoy the breaking dawn along the shore. In this early hour, when Arien was just barely cresting the distant waves, peace seemed to reign in the pinks and purples of the morning light. The spell would soon be broken, and he would be forced to ride back to Tirion to deal with the impossibility of running a society where 70% of all people had disappeared at once. Families were grieving still. There were not enough craftsmen in any discipline. Many empty houses were beginning to fall into disrepair, even in the blessed realm. But for a few moments at least, Finarfin could forget all the paperwork, the disputes, the complaints, and the grief-stricken faces of all of his people. He could forget how he lost all 4 of his beloved children on the same day. Taking a deep sigh, he enjoyed the feel of soft white sand beneath his bare feet as he walked along the shore. Then a great rumble of thunder split the clear sky. Alarmed, Finarfin looked up over the waters and saw 2 objects falling from the heavens. Squinting, he noticed that they almost looked like people. Eyes widening at the impossibility of 2 elves falling from the sky, Finarfin began to run. A scream reached his ears then, and Finarfin ran faster, noting that the 2 falling were not dropping straight towards the ground, but at an angle like how a shooting star of Vardas might arc across the sky. He mumbled a quick prayer that they would hit the water and not the sand. Manwe must have heard him, for the first elf hit the water and skipped like a stone. Finarfin watched horrified at the tangle of arms and legs. Surely no one could survive being tossed like a child's doll. The second elf also hit the waves and skipped even higher than his companion. And then the High King ran into the waves to catch them when they stopped. Only they didn't stop. The elves tumbled and skipped across the waves, losing speed with each hit, until at last they rolled past Finarfin standing knee-deep in the water and came to rest in a heap on the shore. Immediately the king ran to them, fearing the worst. "Get off me, you oaf!" a very familiar voice ordered, and Finarfin's eyebrows nearly disappeared into his hairline. If I weren't already dead, then that stunt of yours would have certainly finished me off." The second elf rolled off the other, only to begin dry heaving on his knees. And Finarfin's blue eyes were impossibly wide, because despite the fact that there was seaweed in Feanor's tangled dark hair, and that Fingolfin's grey tunic was torn, and there was a long strand of kelp tied around his leg, there was no mistaking his 2 elder brothers. "Nara? Nala?" he asked, wondering what exactly he had drunk last night to give him such hallucinations. "Nara!" exclaimed Fëanor as he stood up from where he lay. Or at least he attempted to stand. Evidently he was not strong enough for that, as he immediately collapsed against Finarfin. Fingolfin eyed them warily from where he knelt, looking a little green. "When does he get a hug?" he asked. "You didn't want one," Fëanor explained weakly as he stumbled back and appeared to be focusing really hard on staying on his feet. "I'm alright," he explained at Finarfin's questioning look. "I'm just getting used to having Hroa again." Finarfin felt the blood drain out of his face as he began connecting the dots. "What do you mean, again?" he asked, giving his brothers the look that had made even his little Galadriel tell the truth. His two brothers looked at each other then, unspoken words passing between them. Then Fingolfin stood on shaky legs. "He died first," he replied plainly. Finarfin settled his fea-searching stare on Fëanor. "Fëanor, I won't even get started on the slaughter of my wife's people. That is a sin which cannot be dealt with here, nor do I even wish to recall it now. But," and he paused then, making sure to stare daggers at Fingolfin as well, "do the two of you, fools that you are, mean to tell me that you both went and got yourself killed, leaving all of our children alone?" I didn't," Fingolfin began, but Finarfin shut him up with the look. "You're both wearing the Grey of Mandos. You fell from the sky. I wasn't aware that is how Nama released elves from his halls, but it makes more sense than any other explanation. And this means you left all our children to face the darkness alone." "Well, not all. Do you remember the last time we left our eldest unsupervised? All three of them nearly fell off a cliff. I looked up to see Findarato hanging upside down, my Timo holding his ankle with one hand, Findagano's hand with his other one, and Findagano himself held onto a tree root for dear life as all three of them swung over the abyss. And now, you left those three to lead our people against one who was once the greatest of the Valar." Fëanor had the good grace to look away from Finarfin's blazing eyes. "You know, Aram," he ground out, "I remember you being the gentle one." Finarfin huffed and crossed his arms. "That was before they made me king. Before I lost my children, and both of my impossible brothers," he finished, looking down at the sand. Fingolfin gulped and took a slow step towards his youngest brother. Slowly he embraced him. Finarfin felt himself tremble in his arms, as all the emotions he had kept bottled for centuries behind the floodgates of his heart threatened to tear loose. Fëanor looked away, hissed like an angry cat, seemed to have a short war with himself, and then stepped forward and put his arms around both his brothers. Finarfin felt himself break on feeling Fëanor's tentative embrace. Silent tears began to flow. "Oh, Ara, it is all right," Fingolfin began in a gentle voice. "We never meant to leave you here. We didn't mean to abandon your children either." And Finarfin ducked his head. This was pathetic. No matter how much he missed his family, he shouldn't cry like this, in the arms of murderers. He wrenched himself away from them both. "I love you both, you know. I loved you with all my heart. And then I saw the bodies. The Teleri you had killed. And for what? How can I let myself be hugged by you?" Fingolfin's heart tore at the truth his brother spoke. He was a murderer. It didn't matter that he thought it had been in self-defense, that he believed that Teleri had attacked them first. He had still killed innocents. He looked at Fëanor and saw that his mouth was opening and closing, as if in shock. Something unreadable was swimming across his silver eyes as he looked at Finarfin. Fingolfin almost gasped. Was that regret in his brother's face? Gritting his teeth, Fëanor then did the unthinkable. He collapsed to his knees in the sand and bowed his head. Forgive me, Arafinwe, Nolofinwe, he muttered. The rage in my heart was burning that day, and for many days after that. I killed when the Teleri would not give us the ships. I struck my eldest son when he argued against burning them. Fëanor took a deep, shuddering breath and continued. But I lit the flames anyway, and caused untold suffering to you, Nolo, and countless of our people. I killed my youngest that day. And Fëanor's voice was trembling again. He did not say any more, but tears were streaming down his face. Long had Fingolfin hardened his heart against his elder brother. Oh, he could be civil enough towards Fëanor in Mandos. Fingolfin had not been High King for no reason, but never had he thought that they could ever be true brothers again. Fëanor had way too much pride for that, but never did Fingolfin think that Fëanor would even attempt to apologize on his own. And as he looked at his proud brother sobbing silently in the sand, he knew that he felt the stone around his heart crumble. He went to him and hugged him tightly. Never will I forget what you did, and the suffering your actions caused. But you are my brother. You will always be my brother. And forgiveness I will always give you if you ask. And then Finarfin was there as well. Always, he whispered. Fëanor shook a bit, but nodded. Thank you, brothers of mine. Never had I thought it would turn out like this. He looked up then, eyes gleaming, all the more for the tears that still remained in them. In time, I will ask Olwe and his people for forgiveness. I will meet all those I killed when they return from Mandos, but they will not be released for some time, and I have a mission to complete. If I'm to right my wrongs and save our children. Finarfin was taken aback. What do you mean? Why were you released so soon if the innocents could not be? What do you know of our children? Fëanor stood then, and the morning sun soon glistened off his horribly tangled wet hair. Fire was in his silver eyes. Nolofinwe and I were not released. We escaped, he said matter-of-factly. Fingolfin gulped, and Finarfin hit his own forehead with the palm of his hand. Figures, the blonde muttered. We escaped because you are right. Our children cannot hope to defeat Moringoto alone. And I, for one, will not waste an eternity languishing in the halls. Nolo agreed with me. And so now, the three of us brothers shall return to the east and ensure our enemy's final defeat. Nara! Finarfin exclaimed. I have duties here! We have shortages of almost everything since you took our best craftsmen, and grief and despair are in the hearts of so many. Ara, leave the kinging in Valinor to counselors and advisors. They will figure it out. Come away with us. Come see your children again. Fëanor, how are you planning on getting there? Fingolfin asked, pointing out the ever-present problem. Fëanor smiled, and a feral grin, whipping the last of his tears away as the fire of his spirit burned hot. I have given that some thought. If I were to go to Alqualonde, I would most likely be sent back to Mandos. That is unacceptable at this time. Finarfin and Fingolfin stared at him, saying nothing. So, we will have to build our own ship, Fëanor finished, looking quite content. And do you know how? Finarfin asked. Surely. I actually did make friends with one of the Teleri in the halls. We exchanged crafts. You what? Boredom. One becomes so restless in the halls that learning is worth more than holding grudges. Luntan and I understood this. He is a young man after my own heart, and lots of ideas he had on how to make wood resistant to the power of the waves. Finarfin frowned. And you didn't think to bring this Luntan back with you? Fëanor looked as if the thought just struck him. You're right. Why did I bring Noah if I could have had a sharp young mind alongside me? Fingolfin shot an elbow into Fëanor's ribs. You needed me, remember? He mumbled. Oh yes, that was true. And I still need you now. I need you both. We need to get some strong horses to drag timber to these shores. We also need to trade for some cloth, rope, and tar. I'm sure I left a few axes behind in my workshop. Fëanor did not like the way Finarfin was suddenly smiling despite his solemn nature moments before. What, Arafinwe? You look like Turko when he has done some mischief. Nothing, dear brother. I'm just looking forward to seeing Nerdanel's face when she catches you stealing axes. I wonder if she will lop your head off with one. Fëanor felt his face go white. Nerdanel. And she is seen so often with fair Anaire, Finarfin continued, giving Fingolfin a nod. And Fëanor knew then that he had to take his youngest brother across the sea. He was 3 times as vicious as he had previously given him credit for, and surely he could strike mortal fear into Moringotto. I am not ready to see my wife, Fingolfin declared slowly, and his words echoed Fëanor's thoughts perfectly. Fëanor had half the mind to swim across the sea to lessen the risk of being beat with a decorative marble pillar. You must save us, Ara, Fingolfin continued. Of all of us, you and Findis were always the strongest with the songs of power. Sing some concealment over us. Finarfin just raised an eyebrow. Brother, you must, Fëanor said, hating how he sounded close to pleading. But this was important. He could face his beloved after they had defeated Morgoth. Now was not an option. What makes you think I'm so strong with song? I'm barely adequate. It was Artanis and Findarata who got that gift, not I. Besides, if I had to endure Erwin's uprising, then you two should also face the consequences. Erwin is the sweetest elf to have ever drawn breath. She's made of sunshine and sea foam. And Naire, Fingolfin shuddered. My beloved looks just as sweet, but she's fierce as an eagle. She will rip my legs off if she finds me. Fëanor snorted. Nerdanel is a sledgehammer. A giant one. Like Grond, the weapon of the underworld. Fingolfin shuddered again, and Fëanor winced. I'm sorry. No, it is an accurate description. Well, I know. Fingolfin waved him off. Arafinwe, will you send your dearest brothers back to eternal imprisonment in Mandos? For surely after our escape we will be bound in chains and never see the light of day. Or will you help us with a life yet unfinished? Finarfin sighed, feeling a roaring headache coming on. This was supposed to be his peaceful walk. Very well. I will try my best. Finarfin sang in a golden voice that was deep and stronger than even Findarato's. But he was not lying when he said that his skill did not lie in songs of power. He tried his best to wrap concealment around both his brothers, and the result was that they both looked like plain Vanyar commoners. His spell had given them blonde hair, but it did not shine golden like his own, instead appearing rather like dried straw. He was able to give them green eyes, although those were a bit dull, and their pale skin looked ever so slightly like it were painted. His song hid some of their more noble features, the high cheekbones and strong jawlines. But altogether, they looked, for all the world, like twin dunces who shared a single thought between them. Still, Finarfin mused as he finished singing. Perhaps he wasn't that far off with the characterization, because the minute Fingolfin caught sight of his elder brother, he began to crackle like fire in the rain, and then Fëanor was crackling too. And Finarfin said a prayer for all the men and women who lived in Endor. End of chapter 1. Stay tuned.